Have y'all ever thought about starting your own podcast but thought it would be too complicated? If your answer to that question is yes, let me tell you about Anchor. Anchor is the easiest way to start a quality podcast. First of all, it's free. There's creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast from any device. And on top of that, Anchor is owned by Spotify, so you have access to a full library of sound effects, background music, transitions, and even full songs that you can add in. Anchor will distribute your podcast for you, and it will hook you up with sponsors so you can make money on your podcast. It's literally everything you could ever need to start a podcast all in one place. Download the free Anchor app today or go to anchor.fm to get started. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome back to the Raw Prospect Podcast. My name is Emmy Nixon. Today is August the 15th. This is episode 73. And joining me from Austin, Texas, the Stat King himself. What is going on, Michael Ween?
What's up, bro? Did you enjoy week one? I sure did.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. That's for sure.
So for those of you tuning in, we greatly appreciate it. Please like and subscribe. We greatly appreciate that as well. This is our weekly NFL predictions episode. We did introduce a new contest between Emmy and I, a season-long contest that will continue throughout the season. Every Wednesday we'll do an episode where we pick up all the games against the spread. And so today, we're going to recap what happened in week one and how we did in our picks. And then we're going to do our picks for week two. And then this weekend, we might have an episode where we talk about other stuff other than NFL. But I think the Wednesday episodes are going to be primarily NFL. So that's what we're going to try to do at least. Maybe that changes once NBA gets going. But for now, that's what it's going to be. So I hope you enjoy this. I think it's going to be really informative for those of you who either want to get into, betting on some of these games, or maybe you have a sports book that one of your friends has, or whatever the case may be, or you just want to be an informed NFL fan more than you are now. This will be a good thing for you to listen to on a weekly basis. So with that,
right,
let's just hop into a recap of what happened. We're going to do our week one takeaways, if you will.
Right, exactly.
So do you want to start us off?
Yeah, week one was wild. I think the most obvious thing to start with was that Packers-Saints game. Just fascinating stuff going on there. Obviously, Packers side of things, Aaron Rodgers looked not only rusty, but it felt dysfunctional as well. It felt like the dysfunction was carrying into the team chemistry, which was probably the most concerning thing that you can see from there. But I think they'll bounce back, but we'll talk about that later. The Saints side of things, just Jameis Winston. He was the story of the entire week one, in my opinion. 5 touchdowns. Just super solid, mistake-free football. Picked up a few rushing yards as well. Big first downs to keep drives alive. Just making the timely plays and not trying to do too much. He only threw 20 times, and most of his yards were on that 55-yard bomb to Devante Harris, but he got the job done. He did what he had to do.
Yeah, that's a good game to start with. In terms of the Packers and Aaron Rodgers, this was a rare occurrence. And when I say rare, I mean rare occurrence. for the Green Bay Packers and Aaron Rodgers. We're talking about a guy in Aaron Rodgers who doesn't throw a lot of interceptions and hasn't in his career. He only has like 1 or 2, maybe 3 at the most seasons in his career where he's even gotten to double-digit interceptions in a season. He usually takes very good care of the football. And it's seldom that he throws multiple picks and no touchdowns in the game. This is only the 3rd time in his Hall of Fame career that he's done that, where he's thrown 0 touchdowns and multiple picks in an NFL game in a 16-year career. His passer rating of 36.8 in Sunday's game was tied for the 4th worst in his career. And they lost 38-3. Their largest loss with Aaron Rodgers at QB and their fewest points ever scored in a game in which Rodgers played a significant role. That's according to The Ringer, which is a very good source. Highly recommend it. As far as, but he's the MVP. I'm sure it was, it's only one game, and they'll bounce back. They're playing Detroit this week. Detroit, I think, is one of the laughing stocks of the league right now. No offense to any Detroit Lions fans out there, but I think we got to call it what it is. And I think they're going into Lambeau, and they don't win in Lambeau. So they're going to bounce back, obviously. There are some concerns. I don't think Aaron Rodgers is a long-term concern. I think that was just sort of a fluky game. They weren't really in the right mindset coming into it. Sean Payton's a very good coach. I think I'm going to be sitting here at the end of the season saying I really underestimated the New Orleans Saints, especially if James Winston plays like that. I mean, if he plays anything close to like that on a week-to-week basis where he's taking care of the football and he's efficient, because I think he completed like 14 out of 20 throws. That's like 70% completion percentage, which is amazing for Jameis Winston. He was efficient. He got them where they needed to go. They were great in the red zone, and he didn't turn over the ball. He did have one bad throw where he kind of threw it while he was getting hit up into no man's land in the end zone, but he got bailed out. It was intercepted, and he got bailed out by a roughing the passer ball. But nevertheless, other than that, he was flawless. I mean, there's nothing bad you can say about what happened on Sunday. So I think I'm going to be sitting here at the end of the season based on what I saw Sunday saying, man, I was wrong about the Saints. Because if he plays anything close to like that, where he's just even, managing the game and not turning the ball over, once Michael Thomas comes back, once this team gets healthy, who knows? They'd be able to find themselves in a wild card spot sometime down the road. But it's way too early for those discussions. I'm just saying, based on what I saw Sunday, if that continues, and we'll need to see that continue, that could definitely be a situation. But I think we learned a lot in week 1 to not underestimate these Hall of Fame caliber coaches who come in and have a game plan ready to go. That they know what they're doing right out of the gates. But really good thing to see if you're a New Orleans Saints fan. If you're a Packers fan, there are some longer-standing concerns, but you don't have to worry about Aaron Rodgers. He'll bounce back. It was just sort of a fluky game.
Right, exactly. So, and Aaron Rodgers has nothing to prove at this point in his career. Right. He's already first ballot Hall of Famer, and I think a lock in terms of top 5 quarterbacks of all time, however you want to put that list together. There's no problem in my book. To me, he's top 4, possibly top 3 in terms of talent. So he's got nothing to prove. He'll bounce back for sure. I'm not too concerned there. Let's move on here. So my next takeaway, I'm not sure if this takeaway aligns here, is just that the Eagles look a lot better than what I thought they would. And that mostly falls on Jalen Hurts, but it also falls on me just underestimating their line play. Their offensive line looked fantastic. Their defensive line looked fantastic, and they look healthy. And I think they actually have one of the best offensive lines in the league when they're healthy. They've just never been healthy. So if they can stay healthy this year, then there's no reason in my mind for them to not be players in that NFC East.
It wasn't one of the takeaways I had written down, but I don't necessarily disagree with you. They did look a lot better than I think both of us thought they would.
Right.
And give credit where credit is due to new coach Nick Sirianni, who got his team ready to play, and Jalen Hurts, who threw for over 300 yards, a couple touchdowns. I don't think he turned the ball over. Correct me if I'm wrong on that, but I don't believe he did. But I'm going to slow my roll a little bit. It was against the Falcons.
Right, yeah.
Who aren't very good defensively. So just they have a new coach and everything, so just slow your roll on that a little bit. And also, the injury part is a big if. But, regardless, and this kind of goes back to what I said with the Saints, right? If they stay healthy, and if they can continue this on a week-to-week basis with some sort of consistency, then we can be in here saying around Thanksgiving the Eagles are right there in the playoff. Like they're hunting for a wild card spot in that NFC East. Maybe even hunting for the division. Who knows? So give credit where credit is due. I believe Jalen Hurts now has more, and it doesn't really mean anything, but I think he has more 300-yard passing games in 5 starts than Lamar Jackson does in like the 38 starts. Just a fun fact I saw earlier, but it doesn't mean anything. That's just what it is. Cool stat for your Eagles fans out there. But yeah, give credit where credit is due. I think the main reason I was low on the Eagles was because aside from the injuries, it's a new coach who I wasn't very impressed with in the preseason and the interviews and all that stuff. And just, I didn't really like their personnel. But I will say, I think the strength of the team is definitely the offensive and defensive lines. And if you start there and build from the inside out, you're in a good position. And I think they have a good foundation moving forward. So, yeah, good for the Eagles.
Yeah. And if you want to move into your second takeaway, since you said it was a different one.
Well, I think we should mention, well, let's do this, and then for our last couple minutes of this segment, we can talk about our own teams.
Okay,
just because I feel like we should. But this kind of ties in with my other 2 takeaways that I have here. First of all, this is just kind of an overarching sort of cool thing that I realized week 1. The NFC West, man, this race is going to be, I mean, I can't wait till these division games, but nevertheless, the NFC West is a dominant division. It's the best division in football. It proved itself in week 1. NFC West teams went 4-0 in week 1, and they won their games by an average margin of 16 points per game. That's 3 scores in the NFL. Dominance. And 2 of those wins, 2 of the 4 teams beat playoff teams from last year. So it's not like they were going against, slouches or anything like that. So NFC West, man, and boy, the Cardinals, man, they really impressed me. That's another conversation. We can get into that later when we talk about them, because they have an interesting game this week. But the NFC West, I can't wait. It's going to be fun all season. But I did have one particular takeaway for one team in the division. That's the Rams. I just think it's kind of a broad takeaway. But Sean McVay is no longer limited by his quarterback like he was with Jared Goff, and that's a scary thing for the rest of the NFL. But this defense, if they can stay healthy, they still have a running game, even though they don't have, forgetting his name, their top guy.
Cam Akers. Cam Akers.
Yeah, they don't have Cam Akers, but they still have Darrell Henderson and a couple other guys. They're still going to have an effective running game. These receivers, man, they're really good. Cooper Kupp, Robert Woods. Their tight ends are solid. I mean, they're just solid at all positions. They don't really have a weakness. Their weakness was quarterback, I think a lot of people would say, but now it's, I mean, I guess you can nitpick maybe their secondary at times, but since they did lose some pieces there, but now, I mean, you look at Matthew Stafford right out of the gates against a good defense in the Bears that was healthy coming in. He finished with his highest passer rating of his 13-year career at 156.1. He didn't come close to anything like that when he was in Detroit. 20 out of 26, 320, 3 touchdowns, and I believe 0 picks. So it's just going to be scary. But we'll see what they do this week. They're playing the Colts on the road. It was the opening of SoFi Stadium with fans, so that was exciting. It was also exciting to get to see the opening of whatever the stadium in Las Vegas is called. I think it's Allegiant Stadium.
Right,
with
Allegiant.
Fans.
Right.
That was exciting. That was an exciting game. Maybe we'll talk about that a little later. But just watch out for the Rams, man. They're no longer held back by the most important position in the league, and that's quarterback. I don't know. Just what are your quick thoughts on what the Rams put on Sunday night?
I mean, it's just the explosiveness. I mean, it's just off of that play action. They have the entire field to their exposure, and that puts so much pressure on the defense, especially since McVay, no matter who's in there at running back, is going to scheme up rushing yards no matter what. That's like that I know for a fact. With knowing that, now you have to guard 50, 60 yards down the field and take away that running game. That's good luck with that. That's going to be extremely difficult.
Yeah, that's one thing I really didn't hit on. It's obvious. Now they have the ability to really air the football out deep downfield. And that's what makes the Chiefs so good. They can beat you in snap of a finger. They can score in a lot of different ways. They can drive down the field, long drives, take time off the clock, and they can hit those long bombs down the field and score in 2 plays, just like that. So when you can have a variety of ways to score, it makes you more dangerous offensively, and it gives you more ways to win games. Before, with Jared Goff, there's really only a couple ways you can win games with Jared Goff. And that's no offense to Jared Goff. He can still win you games and even get you to a Super Bowl like we saw if he has everything worked out around him. But with Stafford, now you can overcome some of those, I don't know, setbacks or weaknesses or whatever you want to call it, whatever the word is.
Right. Exactly.
So, yeah. NFC West is going to be, especially if the Cardinals are anything like they looked like on Sunday, it's going to be, man,
yeah.
It's going to be fun.
Yeah,
but anyways.
Interesting thing is, like, I saw Brett. I don't remember if it was Brett Coleman or Marcus Whitman, but one of those guys on YouTube that covers football predicted 4 NFC West teams to make the playoffs. And, I mean, I can see it happening. I mean, it would be the first time ever in NFL history, but if it's ever going to happen, it would be this division. Right, exactly.
But that would mean you'd obviously have to have the division winner, and then all 3 wild card spots would have to be occupied.
Right.
By NFC West teams for that to happen. And right now, I don't know if I see that happening, but man, if there's one division who's going to do it, it would be that one.
Right.
So, anyways, to finish off this segment, if there's nothing else you want to mention.
I just want to mention one other thing. Just in that Chargers versus football team game, I just want to mention how incredible Justin Herbert looked. I mean, that Washington football team defense lived up to every bit of the hype. They were incredible, but Justin Herbert just stood in the pocket and threw strike after strike after strike. And even with Mike Williams having key drops on different plays, he just kept on pushing and kept on going. And I mean, he won them that game. He looks so good. I don't know if, because I know that game was kind of buried in the schedule. I know that was kind of a 1 o'clock or noon game for most people. But if you have a chance to go look at those highlights, it's definitely worth a watch. He made some incredible throws.
Okay. To finish off this segment, and let's do it fairly quickly.
Right.
Your 2 to 3 minute synopsis on what you saw from your team, the Dallas Cowboys. And I know it kind of feels like a while ago now. It's almost a week ago. But what do you see from your Cowboys, and how confident do you feel moving forward, as opposed to how you felt coming into the game?
Well, I feel a lot more positive than I did before, just simply from the fact that I know that our offense will be able to keep us in games in most cases. I mean, obviously, there's off games here and there, but I think our offense is good enough to where we'll be in the game most of the time. But defensively, I just like the fact that we competed. Just in terms of defending the run, there was no huge gashes. I mean, it wasn't perfect, but, I mean, guys were competing, they were hustling, and, I mean, from Trevon Diggs, I mean, a second-year corner who's just thrown into this number one corner role and has to guard Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. I mean, he did incredible. So that's really encouraging. I can't really say much else than that. I mean, it's going to be a rough start to the season. We got to go on the road to LA, and we're going to talk about that later, but I feel a lot better than I did before, that's for sure.
Okay. Well, I know some not so great news has come out as recently as this afternoon in Cowboys land.
Mm-hmm.
So that's unfortunate. But I think after this Chargers game, I believe your schedule really eases up. So even if you lose this game, you really don't play another playoff team from last year until like November, if I'm not mistaken. So I'm still confident the Cowboys can get through this, but I echo your sentiment. I feel pretty good about the Cowboys moving forward. Injuries aren't a great situation, but what I saw against a really good defense, the best team in the league, we agree on Thursday night. I feel better moving forward about the Cowboys.
Right.
Now, for my Steelers, man, this was a classic Pittsburgh Steelers game. Yep. It had everything you can imagine. The first half was terrible. The offense couldn't do anything. The weaknesses on the offensive line were it was rearing its ugly head, right? They couldn't really run the football to much of an extent. And the tackles were getting beat off the edge. Those were blitzing Ben. Nothing was really working. But the defense kept us in the game. The Bills had 2 drives in that first half where they started inside Steelers territory, meaning across the 50-yard line, and they came away with just 3 points. So the defense kept us in. There was a touchdown late in the first half that put the Bills up 10-0. Second half, Pittsburgh outscores them 23-6, and they end up winning 23-16 for a huge road victory. What got it done? Coaching, defense, and special teams. That's what got it done. And I'll just say this. It was a masterful game plan by Mike Tomlin. Defensively. He comes from a defensive background. This was a masterful game plan defensively. They played a lot of dime and nickel defense. They had 5, sometimes even more defensive backs on the field. They weren't necessarily double teaming singular like receivers, but they were able to create pressure with that front 4 and a lot of it. And then they were able to drop into coverage, play a lot of cover 3, not let anything behind them. And those 5-6 defensive backs really helped them in coverage. So this was a masterful defensive performance. I'm not going to rant about it too long. I'll do that later. Masterful coaching performance. And it was really that special teams play that won them the game. Chris Boswell was fantastic. Hit a clutch field goal late to put them back up 10 for 45 yards. That can be tough in a place like Buffalo. And they had the punt block, which was masterfully schemed up by whoever the Steelers special teams coordinator is. I think his name's Danny Smith. So really good team victory. In terms of Ben, nothing special. He managed the game, and really, when you look at his career record, when he's just like a game manager and doesn't have to throw the ball 50 times, 40, over 35 times, he wins a lot of games. Like he wins, I think, 75% of his games. I don't know the exact stat, but he wins at least 75% of his games when he doesn't have to throw that much. So he made the throws he had to. He took care of the football. So that was good. That's all we really needed him to do. And we got the win. So I'm feeling pretty good about our chances. But the thing I worry about is this is how we're going to have to win all season. The defense is going to have to be damn good, and the offense is just going to have to do enough to win the game. And if the defense can do what it did Sunday on a fairly consistent basis, then yeah, I think we could win 9 or 10 games, get into the playoffs, because we have a Hall of Fame coach and that sort of pedigree. But it's a big question mark, right? As great as this defense is, it's a big question mark because we play some teams and we do have the toughest schedule in the league. But when we get to the Steelers-Raiders game, I'll talk more about that.
Right. And one thing I'll say is the receiving core really stepped up as well. The big catches by Deontay Johnson, the big catches by Chase Claypool, and obviously that absolute moss of was that Tre'Davious White?
That was Tre'Davious White.
Yeah, that was sick. Just watching that live, that was fun to watch for sure. I mean, that receiving core is dynamic, and I mean, no matter what the offensive line is going to look like, I mean, I think you can rely on them to make plays as long as you just get the ball to your playmakers. Just find a way to get it done, and I think the offense can do enough. This defense is better than last year. As crazy as that sounds.
That's what I was going to say later, but we'll get into it later.
I mean, they were great last year, but this defense looks, I mean, yeah, as you said, we'll get into that later. But, yeah, just really great game from the Steelers. Impressive win. All right, so that brings us into our Week 2 picks here. Last week, we both went 8-9, so we go into Week 2 tied. We both missed on our locks, and we both hit on some upsets. So Should be interesting going into this week. So
We did. Let's make 2 minor adjustments to the rules that I think we said we were going to make last week.
Right.
Number 1, picks are going to lock after we finish this podcast tonight. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Just so for the fans, just for the ease of communication, so the fans know who we ended up actually picking, because they won't know if we change it afterwards. So picks are going to lock after we type them in to this spreadsheet and after we say them on this podcast tonight. Okay, that's number 1. Number 2 is, I think we should make a rule, and this is a proposal to you, where you can't pick, like for example, I picked the Ravens for my lock week 1. I can't pick them again for my lock down the road. You want to do something like that?
I mean, we can. I'd be cool. I mean, I'd be fine with that, but
maybe if you win, like if you win the lock, maybe that keeps that team. I don't know. I don't want to make it too complicated.
Yeah.
I want to do something. I want to do something to where you can't just keep picking the same teams for your lock.
Yeah. How about this? You can't choose the same team for a lock twice in like a 4-week span or something like that, because it's a 17-game season, so it's going to be like a lot of like there's going to be some weeks where like teams are on buys and there's not really any other option, you know?
Right. Okay. So we'll say you can't pick the same team for a lock within let's see, the NFL season is 18 weeks.
Yeah.
We'll split it into thirds. Within a 6-week span.
Okay. Yeah. If it hits, if they win.
Yes. So there you go. That's the rule. Okay.
Alrighty.
With that, week 2. We start tomorrow night. Week 2. It's an NFC East divisional showdown between the Giants and the football team. And the football team will be starting Taylor Heineke at quarterback. What do you think? It's Washington football team at home, -3.5 is the line.
I mean, this has hard-fought defensive battle all over it. I'm gonna pick the Giants to cover. I feel pretty comfortable with that. I think the football team will win, but I'm looking at this game as I think the winner scores less than 20 points possibly. This is going to be a very hard-nosed, old-school, run-the-football type of football game. It's going to be fun to watch.
Okay, so you're picking Giants +3.5.
Yep.
I think I have to agree with you. It's going to be a defensive slugfest. I see something along the lines of like a 2017 final where the team that maybe gets a turnover or like maybe even gets the ball last goes on a drive to kick a field goal late. And I know it didn't look good in week 1 against the Broncos, and that's a good defense as well. And Daniel Jones made some costly mistakes that have haunted him in years past, and that needs to stop now if the Giants want to have any shot.
Yep.
But I think Joe Judge makes the necessary adjustments, and the Giants will make a play or two more, given that they're more dynamic at receiver. They have Saquon back, although I don't know if he's going to play in this game. But I still think they're plenty capable at running back. And their defense, they're just going to make a play or two more. I just think they're a little more dynamic offensively than the football team is, especially now that they have Taylor Heineke at quarterback. And Taylor Heineke, he can play.
Right.
But
yeah.
I just trust Daniel Jones a little bit more. I think they're going to steal one here. So there you go.
Okay.
So we both agree. I'm going to type that in. and you can start talking about the next game. This opens up the 1 o'clock window on Sunday. It's another divisional matchup. The Buffalo Bills coming off a disappointing loss to the Steelers, -3.5 at Miami, who won a close nail-biter at the New England Patriots last week. What do you got?
This one's a little tougher. Obviously that 3.5 point spread. It's hard to really feel comfortable thinking that the Bills will win by more than a touchdown. So I think it's going to be somewhere between that 3 to 7 range. It's just a flip of a coin, really. My gut is just telling me to go with the Bills, just simply because I need to see more from Tua before I'm willing to bet on him to win against quality opponents. Well, not quality opponents. That's not the right word, but a team that's going to put up points. Can Tua go toe-to-toe with an offense like Buffalo is pretty much the question that I have, which is why I'm going to go with the Bills to cover that 3.5 point spread.
I'm going to go Bills to win and to make a statement after a disappointing loss to the Steelers. I just think their game plan was really screwed in that Steelers game. Josh Allen dropped back to pass 51 times, and that's not the way you win in the NFL, especially when they did run the football in that game. They ran for 6.5 yards per carry. They should have run the ball a lot more. When you pass against the pass rush, when you pass that much against the pass rush like the Steelers, you're just asking for bad things to happen. So I think they're going to correct some of the things they did wrong schematically last week in their past 5 games against the Dolphins. They're 5-0, winning by an average margin of 17 points. So they've really dominated the Dolphins here in years past. I just think they're going to rebound offensively. The defense is really good. Despite the loss last week, I still think this defense is really good. I saw some really good things from their pass rush, even though it was against a not-so-great offensive line, but still. So, yeah, I think Buffalo bounces back. They win by at least a touchdown. And, yeah, there you go.
No, I agree.
I feel like I was going to say something else, but if I remember it, we'll come back to it.
All right. Yeah, fair enough. Next game is Bengals at Bears. I guess I can start off since you're still riding in on the spreadsheet there. This game is interesting because I could definitely see the Bears going to Justin Fields at some point in this game, depending on how it goes. And if they do, that would change a lot of the dynamic of this game, in my opinion. I still have questions about the Bears secondary, but the thing is, though, the Bears defense, their strength on defense is that front seven, and that's where the Bengals' weakness lies. So if that front seven can win and get to Joe Burrow consistently, I think that can mask some of the faults that secondary may make. I don't think it'll be enough to win, though. I'm going to go with the Bengals to cover. I was about to talk myself out of it, but I'm going to go with the Bengals. Crazy. I'm going with the Bengals 2 weeks in a row, but I just feel like, I don't know. I feel like Joe Burrow and this offense are going against a really good matchup in terms of that Bears secondary. I don't like where that secondary is at right now with the Bears. They made a lot of blown coverages last week.
The thing I do like about the Bears is obviously the front seven against Cincinnati's offensive line. And the fact that they were actually really efficient when they ran the football on Sunday night against the Rams, which is a really good defense. I think what's the running back's name? Montgomery.
Right, David Montgomery.
He had over 110 yards rushing, which is very good against that Rams defense. So I do see a formula here where they're at home. They were on the road in a hostile environment last week against a very good defense. Bengals defense isn't that defense.
Right.
I do see a formula here where they run the football, they dominate the Bengals, still relatively not so great offensive line with their front seven. They get to Joe Burrow, and they dominate time of possession. And they just let whoever the quarterback is, whether it's Andy Dalton or Justin Fields or some of both, make the plays that they have to make.
Right.
So for that, I think I'm going to go with the Bears to cover, but I think Cincinnati will win by maybe a field goal, like they did last week. I think Cincinnati's going to be playing in a lot of these games where it's just sort of up in the air. You really don't know what you're going to get on a week-to-week basis yet. With Cincinnati, I think they could win maybe 7 or 8 games if they do play at a consistent clip like they did last week. I just think a lot of these games in Cincinnati, it's going to be hard. They're going to be a hard team. Both these teams are going to be hard to predict on a week-to-week basis.
Right, exactly.
But I'm going to go with the Bears. The Bears can make it close at home.
Okay.
Because I believe in the front seven, and I believe that running game could play a factor.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I can definitely see that. I mean, I'm just going with my gut here, so we'll see what happens.
We have to have some disagreement. That's the only way this contest is gonna.
Yeah. Yeah. Honestly.
Contest is gonna work.
Yeah. Exactly. Okay. So next game here, Broncos at Jaguars. Trevor Lawrence going against a defense coming off a really, really good showing last week. And then obviously that Teddy Bridgewater-led offense, who also were very efficient relatively against a solid Giants defense overall. They didn't make many mistakes. So I think the Broncos can this is a chance for the Broncos to really gain some momentum early in the season. They start off with a few cupcakes. They got the Jaguars this week, then they got the Jets next week. So this is going to be really important for the Broncos to start off well. Obviously, we talked about last podcast how they always get off the slow starts to start the season, going 0-5 or 0-4 or whatever it may be. So I just think the Broncos know what's at stake. They know that they're going to have tough games after this stretch. So I think they're going to take care of business.
Do you think it'll be by more than 6.5?
Yes, I do. I think it'll be by 10 points or so.
I agree with you. They have a really good defense. I really like their weapons. Teddy Bridgewater is going to do what he's not going to kill you. Mm-hmm. He's not going to make that critical mistake that Drew Lock might. I thought they kind of went away from the running game because when they did run the ball against that Giants defense, Melvin Gordon was fairly efficient. I think they need to do that more. But against Jacksonville, it's really not going to matter what they do as long as they don't come into this game sleeping.
Right.
Just don't come into this game. You know, you're on a high. You just had a dominant performance over a competent team, the Giants, right? But that has a fairly dynamic offense with Daniel Jones is right. You just can't come into this game sleeping on the Jaguars. As long as they do that, and their defense is locked in, they're getting a pass rush on a rookie quarterback who saw sort of struggled, but also had his moments in week 1 against another not so great defense. But yeah, I think as long as the Broncos do what they're, just take care of business. Don't come into this game thinking you're just going to roll.
Right.
It is the NFL. It's any given Sunday.
Right,
but
exactly.
Yes, Denver by 2 touchdowns, I think.
Alrighty, so we're in agreement there. Next game, I believe this is the biggest line of the week. We got the Browns at home against the Texans, favored minus 12.5. What are we thinking here? Yeah, that's huge.
It is a huge line. And we actually do have a couple of these.
Right, yeah.
The Buccaneers are 12.5-point favorites against the Falcons at home, and then the Packers are 10.5-point favorites against the Lions at home. So we do have a couple of these really big lines here in week number 2. For this game, okay, so basically what that's saying to me is the Browns are going to win this game by 2 touchdowns. Do I have confidence that they're going to do that? I mean, they did show some really good things against a Super Bowl, a bona fide Super Bowl contender in the Kansas City Chiefs. They have a dominant offensive line, a dominant run game. When Baker has the lead, he plays really well. The pass rush is unbelievable with Myles Garrett and Jadeveon Clowney. We saw those guys make an impact. Their secondary is better. Houston dominated another bad team last week. Now they're going up against the real team in Cleveland. Cleveland's pissed off about their miscues late in the game last weekend against Kansas City. Again, that they probably should have won had they have executed a couple of those plays. I know it's a big line, but Cleveland by a lot.
Yeah, I can't put any faith in the Texans. I mean, obviously we both picked the Jaguars last week, and that didn't go quite well. But I mean, this is a different beast. Going on the road against a team that has the best offensive line in football, in my opinion, and just an identity that just doesn't match up well against anything the Texans do. So I think they're just going to run the ball right down their throat the entire game. No reason to throw the ball more than 20 times, really. Just run it. I think they'll win by more than 2 touchdowns. I think this will be a pretty easy game for the Browns here.
All right. So we both took the big one there.
Yep. Risky. Very risky.
You feel pretty confident about it. Now, through the first 5 games, are there any games that you want to take a chance on a lock, or are we going to continue with this?
We're going to continue. I have my eye on one game.
Okay. Let me type this in. You go ahead and start talking about the Rams and the Colts.
Yeah. Okay. The Rams at Indianapolis minus 3.5 here. So, Stafford coming off a really hot week, played incredible. That offense looked incredible, like we had mentioned earlier. And then they're going against Carson Wentz, who, despite what you may have seen on Twitter, did not look bad. He played okay. I mean, he didn't kill it or anything, but they got beat by a team that just had more firepower. And I think it's going to be something very similar. This is actually going to be my lock of the week. I think the Rams are going to win by at least a touchdown here. I just don't think the Colts have the firepower to match up with a team like this whose offense is explosive and can score at will, basically. I don't think the Colts are a bad team. I just think they started off with a couple of tough matchups early in the season.
Yeah, I'm still fairly high on the Colts. I think higher than you are. And I don't think an 0-2 start is going to kill them.
Yeah, I don't think so either.
I do, because they're not healthy right now.
Right.
I mean, you can't say that they're a healthy football team right now. I think both of their tackles are in question for this game. Both starting tackles are now in question to actually play this game, as I'm reading here on the internet. And Darius Leonard was held out of practice today. He's nursing some kind of injury, so if he's not in the middle of that defense, that presents myriad problems. And I just think, as we mentioned, this Rams team now has a multitude of ways of beating you. They can do it with their defense. They can do it with explosive offense. They can do it with methodical offense. I mean, they can pretty much do it any way you want it. Right? So I think given the fact that, number one, the Colts aren't healthy, and, thinking to myself pre-podcast, I tried to maybe talk myself into picking the Colts plus the points here, just given the fact that I look at the Colts, and the one thing they have going for them right now is Jonathan Taylor. And when they get him going, they do have a run game, and the Bears were able to run the football a good amount on this Rams defense. But I just don't think it's going to happen, because you're probably going to be missing at least one, if not both, your tackles. And you're just playing a defense that's going to make adjustments. I don't think you're going to see that a lot from the Rams moving forward.
Right.
It's just too good of a front seven. So I'm going to take the Rams minus 3.5. But I think that should be another thing. We both can't pick the same lock. I think that's a given, but just to put that out there.
Right, exactly. But I don't think that was going to be your lock anyway, so.
No.
Yeah, definitely not.
But moving on. Okay, this is my game. This is Raiders Steelers. Now, the Raiders, let's talk about them first here, because I think they deserve it. I picked the Ravens as a lock, as my lock in Week 1 to beat the Raiders in their opening game at Allegiant Stadium, just because I didn't think the Raiders had enough, especially on the defensive side of the ball, to stop this Baltimore running game. And they really didn't. I don't think many defenses do have the the personnel or whatever it is to stop the Baltimore running game because of the threat that Lamar Jackson presents. But one thing I will say about the Raiders, and one thing that worries me a little bit, is that pass rush, man. It looked a lot better than I thought it would on Monday night watching that game. I mean, they got to Lamar Jackson. And when they got to Lamar Jackson, they were punching the football out and creating turnovers.
Right.
Like that. Max Crosby, he's one of the more underrated. I think he could be one of the more underrated their defensive end. He's one of the more underrated, maybe stars in the making here. Maybe I'm overreacting a little bit, but they just looked really good against that Ravens offensive line, which isn't bad at all. So I think given that worries me a little bit, especially given the fact that at our tackle positions for Pittsburgh, I mean, our offensive line as a whole is suspect. But the tackle position is really where we struggle. That's really our weakness. That's what makes this offensive line what it is. So that does worry me a little bit. But the Raiders are dealing with some injuries now. I believe Josh Jacobs is a big question mark to play in this game. I don't know if he's going to be available. I think there were some other pieces along that front seven that did look good that are now missing. Yannick Ngakoue, their free agent pickup, is going to be out for this game. Gerald McCoy, their nose tackle, is going to be out for this game. So they have some question marks at injury. From an injury perspective, that kind of hurts what I was saying about that pass rush. So we'll see if they're still able to exploit that. But I just think the Steelers' offense is going to be able to hit its stride this game. It's going to kind of be a get-right game from an offensive perspective. I think you're going to see Najee Harris get going late. It's going to be close, I think. I'm thinking about picking the Raiders plus the points. But I don't know. It all depends on the Raiders' ability to protect Derek Carr. And I know that sounds nuts because you're going against a defense in general that not only is the front seven probably better than it was last year with the additions of Joe Schobert, an inside linebacker from the Jaguars, who's a proven guy, a Pro Bowler, and Melvin Ingram, who looks like prime Melvin Ingram, like unblockable Melvin Ingram on Sunday. T.J. Watt, opposite T.J. Watt. I don't know. I'm gonna pick Pittsburgh minus 5.5, just because I think about that Raiders offensive line, and it's not the greatest either. And if you have a subpar offensive line, this defense is going to exploit it, and they're going to find a way to get the ball out of Derek Carr's hands and into Ben Roethlisberger's hands. And if the Steelers can maybe force a couple turnovers, like they have been doing on a consistent basis, and flip the field, make it a short field for this Steelers offense, and win the turnover battle, I think it's just it'll be close. It might be close to going into halftime, but what did we see last week? We saw a team that went in, made adjustments, that got going late. The running game sort of showed flashes late. The offensive line is going to continue to gel. So I just think it's too good of a defense. This is an opportunity for the Steelers to really give them a cushion going forward that they need desperately. And I just think veteran team, veteran coach against a coach that's, I don't know what to think of Gruden at this point. His teams are decent. They hang around up until about mid-November, and then they fall off at the end of the season. And they're just not healthy right now. The Steelers are. So I just think Steelers by a touchdown.
All right.
Let's just say that.
I'm actually going to pick the Raiders to cover here. My biggest reason here is just I think Derek Carr is at a point in his understanding of John Gruden's offense to where he's going to be able to get the ball out of his hands quick enough. From what I saw in last week's game, he found a way to be efficient and find his checkdowns and find his outlets and get the ball out of his hands extremely quickly. And obviously, granted, the Ravens defense is not what the Steelers defense is. But if you look at what the Bills like to do and you look at what the Raiders like to do, I think the Raiders actually matches up better with this defense. The Bills like to throw it deep. They like to take shots down the field. And the Raiders like to dink and dunk their way down the field, run the football a little bit. Obviously they're not going to run the football like crazy, especially since Josh Jacobs is questionable for this game. But I just think they can keep it close enough to cover. That's all I'm thinking here. I think the score is going to be like somewhere around 23 to 20, somewhere in that range, I'm thinking.
Okay. All right, next game. New England Patriots minus 5.5 at the New York Jets. What do you think?
This was the other game that I was looking at as my lock of the week. Bill Belichick's track record against rookie quarterbacks is just nothing short of just brutality of youth. Just all of his schemes and all of his all of the ways that he can confuse a young quarterback. I think it's going to be on display again this week, especially since the Jets had offensive line struggles last week. That's even going to compound it even more. I think the Patriots are going to win convincingly here. Obviously, the Patriots have their own rookie quarterback, but given the structure that he has around him, I think it's fair to say that they'll be able to move the ball well against this Jets defense. I have pretty good confidence in that.
Yeah, I mean, Mac Jones looked good against the Dolphins.
Right.
He definitely outplayed Tua
Mm-hmm.
in a matchup of the two former Alabama national championship winning quarterbacks. So, yeah, I think, given what you said, I mean, you hit it right on the head. Belichick dominates rookie quarterbacks going back to 2000. He's 22-7, but if you cut it down to more recently, he's even better than that. So this defense is for real. They held the Dolphins' offense to limited, say what you want, but they still had them down to 16 points, and they were going in to win that game up until whoever it was fumbled. They were good. They were in position to kick a field goal to win that game last week. So just Belichick will have them coached up. They're not going to make those mistakes again. They're playing the Jets, who are still a pretty bad football team, even though Zach Wilson and Joe Douglas has them going in the right direction. They're still not a good football team. Patriots are better all around. They're going to win this game by a lot.
Yeah, I agree 100% there. Moving along here, the New Orleans Saints at Carolina Panthers. Two teams that, I mean, we didn't have making the playoffs, but looked pretty good in their season openers. I think it's fair to say that. Obviously, one was more impressive than the other, but still. But looking at this game here, it's just the most interesting part of this matchup is obviously just the quarterback matchup. I mean, these are two guys that were kind of dumped by their last teams and just have a lot to prove. I just think the Saints are the more established team, and I like that defense. And I think that defense can do some things to confuse Sam Darnold. I think that's going to be the big key in this game, is who's going to win that turnover battle. I'm actually pretty high on the Panthers defense, but I just still think that in terms of Alvin Kamara versus these linebackers, I still think Alvin Kamara wins that matchup and can take over this game. So I'm going to take the Saints to cover here. I feel like I might regret that, but we'll see. I'm going to just take the Saints here.
I think this is going to be my lock of the week.
Okay.
I'm not going to say I have much conviction, and I don't think that's a good thing, but what the Saints showed me last week was pretty convincing.
Right.
And we're talking about a veteran head coach against a rookie head coach. We're talking about all these factors. Winston playing well. I know the Panthers have weapons offensively. DJ Moore looked good in that game, but they were playing the Jets. Christian McCaffrey is obviously a weapon that the Saints, I think, will figure out a way to limit him in some way, shape, or form. And if Jameis, he doesn't even have to throw for 5 touchdowns. He just needs to not have any interceptions. Let Alvin Kamara, give him the ball 20, 25 times. So you can move the ball inside the 20s against this Panthers defense. So you're going to get yards. Just don't turn the ball over and do what you did last week. Be efficient in the red zone. If you do that, you should win this game by 4 points. I think they can do that. I don't think it's too much of an ask to do that.
Yeah.
So I'm going to, for now, and I think we should do something at the end of this podcast where we look at the spreadsheet. Because, sometimes we rethink things.
Right, yeah.
During the podcast. We should have 1 or 2 minutes where we look at our picks and see if we want to change anything before they lock, once we sign off. But, yes, New Orleans -3.5. That's my lock of the week.
Okay. Yeah, I like that pick. I mean, it's just all about Sam Darnold, how he plays against that defense. So, moving along here, 11th game of the week, 49ers at Philadelphia Eagles. I think this pick might surprise you. I'm gonna pick the Eagles to cover. I'm not gonna pick them to win, but I feel like with the 49ers corner situation, with a lot of them going down with injury, and their lack of depth a little bit, I think those Philly wide receivers, that young wide receiving core, I think they can win those matchups. I feel pretty confident in that. Devante Smith looked fantastic last week. I mean, obviously it was against the Falcons, but I mean, his route running ability, I mean, say what you want about his weight, but his route running ability, it translates. It 100% translates. And I think he's immediately an alpha wide receiver on any good team in the league. Throw him in on any good team, and he's immediately alpha. That's how good I feel about Devante Smith, and I think he can put his fingerprints all over this game. I think that'll help them keep it close.
I feel crazy, but I was thinking the exact same thing. Number one, Philly is a hostile environment. It's a tough place to play. And I'm sure you can attest to that, given your team plays in that division. They have to go to Philly once a year. Say what you want about your team, or the Eagles team as it is currently constructed, but those fans, man, they're no joke. The Philadelphia fans, they're no joke. So that's number one. Number two is 49ers. Again, the injuries are coming back. Not as severely yet, but they did lose Raheem Mostert for the season, and they lost their cornerback, Jason Verrett, for a certain amount of time now. Do you know if that's season ending? I did.
I think it is. Not 100% though.
One thing I said about the Eagles coming in is health was a big factor in kind of which way this season's going to go. Because in past years they haven't stayed healthy. But I think now, because they're healthy and it's early in the season and they have a chance, an opportunity to catch the Niners off guard, a Niners team that still gave up 33 points to the Lions offense, I think there's some opportunity for the Eagles here, even if they don't end up winning the game, because I still think the 49ers are obviously the better team. I think still probably have the better quarterback, or the more experienced one at least, and a better coach at that. Kind of all the money is going towards the 49ers, so I think it's a good bet to bet the Eagles here. Plus 3.5 at home in a hostile environment. Jalen Hurts, I think, is the type of quarterback who can hurt this Niners defense, and he's not going to beat himself. That's what he's shown us up to this point in his career. He had one, I think, bad game at the end of last year. That was pretty bad from the quarterback standards, but other than that, he's been really good. I like what you said about the Eagles' weapons. I just think, I don't know, it's one of those, there's an upset every week in the NFL, and I could see this one being the one this week.
Right.
So.
All right. This next one, I'm so torn on. This is Falcons at Buccaneers. Minus 12.5. Oh my goodness, that is massive. Oh my goodness. The Falcons are a mess, and they have a lot to figure out. But this just feels massive, doesn't it? Like I can't help but think like.
Yes, it does. We already both took 12.5 points.
Yeah,
favorite.
like there's no way both these 12.5s hit, right?
I'm gonna say this, and it's really nothing to do with football, but I highly recommend that you follow Tom Brady, whether you like him or not, on social media, because he is absolutely brilliant in the content that he puts out on social media.
Yep, he's hilarious.
Evidence. He's hilarious and he's brilliant. Like, he takes those subtle jabs. And it was evident this week. Every week after the game, he puts out a post-game video, like a hype video, like, he won, this happened, and so on. And then midweek, when he starts his preparation for the next scene, he puts out the video. He goes on Instagram or whatever, and he videos himself. And, he has like a highlight reel and stuff, and he gives the whole pep talk on social media to the fans about what they're going to do this week, and all this stuff. But it was funny this week because he was holding his phone, and in the background he was obviously sitting wherever he studies his film. He has a big computer, and it had the time on the screen. Okay, and he has like the team that he's playing that week as his, I guess, his home screen, just for, I guess, motivation or whatever. But at the time that he was recording this video, it was 3:28. It said 3:28 in the background. And if you remember, that was the score of the Falcons Super Bowl, 28-3. So I think he was doing a little trolling there. He might not admit it, but I think that's what everyone kind of took away from that little video. Recording that video. He didn't have to record. He could have recorded that video at any time, right? During his day or whatever. Like, he decided to do it at 3:28. So you cannot tell me that's not some bit of trolling that he was doing there. But I think Arthur Smith, that had nothing to do with football. It's just funny because you should follow Tom Brady on social media, whether you like him or not, because he's hilarious. But I think the Falcons, Arthur Smith is a brilliant guy. He's going to figure out how to utilize these weapons. Julio Jones was held at 29 yards receiving in last week's game on only like 3 catches. That's only happened 3 times in his career, where he's been held to under 30 yards receiving and over 140 starts. I don't think that's going to happen again. I think they're going to get him going. I think they're going to get Kyle Pitts going. This running game, I mean, we saw, if you have weapons, you can still move the ball and score some points on this Buccaneers defense. We saw last week with the Cowboys. As long as you have a competent offensive line and a quarterback. And look, the Falcons, say what you want about Matt Ryan, he can still play. He's got weapons all over the place. The question is going to be, can they score enough points to, like, keep it in that range to where they're still within 2 touchdowns? Because we know that their defense isn't so great, and the Buccaneers offense is obviously explosive. But I'm going to say they do. I think if that social media video didn't give them any motivation, I think it does this time. As long as they don't make any Falcons-like mistakes, I think they can keep it within 2 touchdowns. So that's my only reasoning. And the fact that I've been picking a lot of favorites. So I need to pick an underdog. And this is a big line to lay. So yeah, that's my only reason for that.
Yeah, I've been picking a lot of favorites also, but I can't bet on the Falcons, man. I can't do it. I can't do it, bro. I just, this team is just so dysfunctional. I think it's going to be a situation where maybe They kind of work through their demons and they get better as the season goes along. But as of right now, they just have so many things to figure out. I got to see it to believe it with the Falcons. I mean, they have the talent, but we say that every year with this team. They have the talent, and then they don't show up. So we shall see.
Could be something I come back and change at the end of the podcast. We'll just leave it at that. We'll just leave it at that. Okay,
but, I mean, 12.5 is huge. So, yeah. Moving on.
Yes, it is.
Vikings at Cardinals. Cardinals favored 4.5 here at home. Coming off incredible performance week 1 against the Titans. What do you think here?
Oh, this is so tough.
Yeah.
This game is one of the games when I was putting on these lines and when I looked at these lines, this is one that caught my eye right away because I just don't know what to think about the Cardinals after that week 1 performance. And obviously the Titans didn't play well at all. They went away from what works best for that team, and that's the play action pass. I believe the Titans were a team that ran play action pass 35% of their offensive snaps last season. And in that game, they only ran play action pass on 7% of their snaps.
Wow, that's ridiculous.
And maybe part of that was because the Cardinals did a really good job. As good as a job as you can do. I can't talk, but it's okay. Of stopping Derrick Henry. Maybe, if you can't run, the play action also doesn't work very well. That's just simple football 101 knowledge that we say every week on this podcast. But with a coach like Cliff Kingsbury, yes, your team played very well week 1 against what we think is going to be a team that's at least in the hunt to make the playoffs and to win their division, right? In the Tennessee Titans. That's not going to be what the Titans look like every week. In fact, I don't think they're going to look that bad again all season. Why am I talking about the Titans? They played the Cardinals, but whatever. I'm kind of my mind is swirling.
Yeah,
but,
it's late. It's good.
My point is, what do we get out of a Cardinals football team after that kind of performance? Because it's the tendency in the NFL for a team that has that kind of performance to kind of come out flat the next week. And the Vikings are pissed off, man. They lost a heartbreaker to the Cincinnati Bengals. A game that they probably should have won. So I think the Cardinals might end up winning this game, but I think the Vikings keep it close.
Yeah,
That's just my gut. That's just my gut feeling.
This one's tough. I think the Vikings pass rush is going to be so huge in this game because I don't know how I feel about that secondary yet. I mean, they didn't play awful last week, but I think a lot of the times that they were able to stop the Bengals, it wasn't because they stopped them. It was because of just Joe Burrow's rust and the lack of chemistry with those receivers at that point. So that secondary doesn't make me feel very good about this, and that's going to make me pick the Cardinals for the sake of disagreement here.
Okay. All right. Could totally see it. And hopefully, why am I typing it in there? Anyways, next game. Your team. You start. Dallas in Los Angeles. What do you think?
Yeah. This game is just going to come down to who gets the ball last. It's It's really all up to fate here. I'm gonna go with the Cowboys to cover. I feel confident in our offense to cover that 2.5 point spread, and I think it's just gonna be a shootout. I mean, the Chargers' defense is I think is better than ours, but I think our offense is gonna be able to put up points anyway. I feel pretty confident in that. I mean, whether we cover or not, I mean, is going to be interesting to see. Just because, like I said, it's just going to be whoever gets the ball last. I mean, there's no real analysis you can do. It's just all up to luck, really.
It's tough with this game, and obviously my AirPods died, but we're still fine. Obviously, we know what the Cowboys' offense is capable of, and we've seen what Justin Herbert is as a passer. I don't know why I said it like that.
Okay.
But this is, just like you said with the Vikings game, I'm going with the Chargers just for the sake of disagreement.
All right. I mean, coin flip game there. Can't go wrong with either, really. I mean, you can, but, can't blame you. So, moving on. Titans at Seahawks, -5.5. So, we're getting back to that 12th man. 12th man is making the comeback, making a return.
Well, we say, or at least I've mentioned on our NFL preview podcast and probably in the last podcast that the Seahawks are a team that, at least in the past couple of years, in their past history, they start the season off very fast. I mean, they start the season off looking like they're a well-oiled machine coming in. They look like they've been playing for 16 weeks. Once that ball is kicked off week 1. And Russell Wilson, again, looks like he's going to be in the MVP discussions once again. Who knows if he'll get any votes, but he probably won't.
Yeah.
So that's just how it ends up working out. But that's what it looks like. The Seattle offense is explosive and all this. Their defense looks better. Their pass rush is good now. And the defenses, it was good last week. But I keep coming back to the fact that it tends to be in the NFL that when veteran teams get embarrassed, like the Titans got embarrassed in week 1, they tend to come back the next week and play a lot better football. And in most cases, more cases than not, actually come back and win the following week, especially with a veteran head coach, top 10, top 12 coach in Mike Vrabel. Potent running game, even though it wasn't last week. They were bringing in a new coordinator who didn't really know what to expect, I don't think, against the team in the Cardinals. Didn't really have his bearings yet. But I think they're going to go back and watch that film. And another thing is, and I know it's sort of abstract, but Seattle tends to play a lot of fun, like entertaining, close games at home. At least they did last year. I don't know if that's going to continue this year. But remember that Patriots game? Their home opener last year on Sunday Night Football in prime time.
That was incredible. That was insane.
That was insane. It came to the last play, the Patriots at the goal line. It's kind of funny because the Patriots, the last notable meeting between the two teams came down to a goal line situation. We're not saying this game is going to, but it's just funny. The Seahawks, when I watch them, tend to play some nail biters, if you will, at home. I think the Titans play a lot better. The 5.5 is the tough number. If they were giving me Seahawks -6, or -6.5, I'd probably take Titans. If it was a little bigger of a number. But I just don't feel confident. I feel this Seattle offense is really too good early on. And they're feeding off that 12th man. The pass rush is better. The Tennessee offense looks suspect. I think they have a lot of things to figure out. I think it could be close for 3 quarters, but Russell Wilson and Pete Carroll are the difference here.
Okay.
Let Russ cook. All those weapons against that suspect Titan secondary is what's going to make this game Seattle cover in the end.
Okay. Yeah. I'm going to go with the Titans to cover. I mean, you mentioned the lack of play action passing. I think Ryan Tannehill, at this point in his career, he knows what he's good at, and that is the play action passing game. That's what he does well. So I think he's just going to go to their new offensive coordinator and just be like, we need to do more of this because I'm good at this. All right, and I think they'll be better this week. I don't think that defense is what they have been in years past. I think they've downgraded a little bit, especially since they got an extremely young secondary. But I just think this is going to be a high-scoring game. I think the Titans will show up offensively this time around. But I think Seattle's balance offensively and just the explosiveness as well is just going to make the difference here. I can see DK Metcalf having a big game here against this Titans secondary.
Are you picking the Titans to cover but Seattle to win?
Yes.
Okay. And I'm picking Seattle to just cover outright. Okay. So, a fair amount of disagreement, but I think some of it is just for the sake of the game that we're playing.
Yeah.
It's just a contest. Okay, the Sunday night game this week. Man, is it a good one. It is the Kansas City Chiefs at the Baltimore Ravens. What do you think? -3.5.
Yeah, that line feels small to me. I don't feel too good about this Baltimore offense right now. I think Lamar Jackson looked decent last week, but I think the little things, the little details, that they made all these moves to get these new players to fix those little details, especially in the passing game, and then all of those players got hurt. It feels like so. It just it sucks if you're a Ravens fan. I mean, I really look forward to watching the Ravens whenever they have their full throttle offense. That running game is super fun to watch, but it's just not the same right now. And if you're coming into a game against the Kansas City Chiefs, not at full strength, it's just going to be tough sledding. I mean, you saw little things against that Raiders team, like just simple things like running backs picking up blitzers. You saw that fumble that Lamar Jackson had. That was on the running back. The running back made a lazy rotation and wasn't able to pick up the blitzer in time, and the blitzer was just able to run right through him and poke the ball out. Little things like that, little details like that. It's just going to make this really hard to win for the Ravens. So I'm picking the Chiefs to cover here.
I agree. It's not September. It is Pat Timber. Patrick Mahomes month. The reason I say that is because Patrick Mahomes just doesn't lose games in September. It's his best month by a mile. In September games in his career with Andy Reid as the head coach, he has an 11-0 record, so he's never lost. He's completing 69% of his passes in those 11 games. He's thrown for almost 4,000 yards in those 11 games, 3,700, with 35 touchdowns and a measly 0 interceptions,
Jeez.
with a quarterback rating of 125.8.
Wow.
Those are his stats in September. Chiefs minus 3.5. That's my rant here.
Yeah, that line feels tiny.
Yeah.
But we'll see what happens.
You're missing Marcus Peters. Your their linebackers look decent, but do you have the necessary personnel to match up with all these weapons that Kansas City has? I just don't think you have enough. You might have a better chance with Marcus Peters, but now that he's out, that's going to hurt this Baltimore team a lot. And Andy Reid's going to find a way to exploit those matchups. Marlon Humphrey will be fine. But opposite Marlon Humphrey is where this game, I think, is going to be really won by the Kansas City Chiefs. And you saw the improvements, the offensive line with the Chiefs that we mentioned last week. Baltimore's front, it just simply isn't as good. It's still good,
right,
but it's just not as good as Cleveland's, I don't think, talent-wise. And then also, one more thing. Baltimore likes to blitz a lot. And I know that because I play in their division. And I watch their games. They blitz. They have one of the highest blitz rates in the league. They've been top 5 the past couple of years. And Patrick Mahomes absolutely obliterates the blitz. With the exception of last year's Super Bowl, he does very well against the blitz. I can find the numbers. I can go to his splits and find the numbers if you want me to. His numbers are something very similar to what they are here against the blitz. Not as good, but they're still very good. So it's just a matter of the Ravens are short on personnel. They have some things they need to figure out. Kansas City, while it's not a great defense, it's still very, very good situationally, and it's well coached. And they have guys who can get to Lamar Jackson in that front seven. And just the fact that Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes just don't lose in September, no matter the circumstances. And it seems, with the exception of last year's Super Bowl, that's really the anomaly here. The worse the situation gets, the better Patrick Mahomes plays. I mean, he's down 24-0 in the whatever that was, divisional round a couple of years ago, and you saw what happened. And I know it's the Texans, but it seems like every time he gets down by double digits, he seems to like they can flip a switch. Like they're one of the few teams in the league that can flip a switch, no matter the situation, home or away, whatever it is, right? They just have that amount of talent. And when you're short personnel, it's hard enough to beat the Chiefs healthy, like the Browns were last week. You saw it. 1 or 2 plays, you make 1 or 2 mistakes, it's over. Like you just can't do it. So Baltimore's going to have to be near flawless to even have a chance. So yeah, Kansas City minus 3.5.
Yeah. Completely agree there. So on to the last game of the day. Hopefully a little bit of an easier game to end here. Lions at the Green Bay Packers minus 10.5 here at Lambeau Field. This feels like a get-right game. This is exactly what the doctor ordered if you're a Packers fan. Going against a team that's rebuilding, doesn't really have near the talent that you have. If you take care of business, and get back into your offensive rhythm, shouldn't be a problem at all. I think it's a no-brainer here. I think they're going to cover. But if they get sloppy, I can definitely see the Lions, not threatening to win, but staying around the 10-point range. I think that could be realistic.
Yeah.
But I don't think that's going to happen. I think they're going to come out sharp.
Yeah, I agree. I just don't like a lot of things going on in Detroit right now. Aside from that running game, it is decent. And that's what I think they need to lean on here, because they don't have many, aside from, the tight end, TJ Hawkinson, they don't have really any other dynamic sort of weapons on the outside. And they have a limited quarterback, and the defense is in a rebuild. So I just don't like a lot of the things going on in Detroit. And once again, I'll say it again, I can go do research for this next week to find exactly what this particular stat is. But teams that get embarrassed or blown out the previous week, especially when they're veteran teams like the Packers, like the Titans, like the Steelers, like whoever it may be, they tend to come back with a vengeance the next week, especially when they're playing at home.
Right, exactly.
Against the team like Detroit. So I just think this is going to be a classic Aaron Rodgers against Detroit type of performance. I think it'll be more touchdowns, no picks, something like that.
Right,
okay.
Right, exactly. Yeah, and I will say this: I'll give Jared Goff a little bit of credit. He looked a lot better than I thought he would last week. I mean, was relatively efficient. Made one mistake early, kind of bad interception, but other than that, he looked pretty solid. I mean, considering he's playing on a team with lack of talent, you got to give him a little bit of credit there, but nowhere near enough to beat this Packers team, in my opinion. So now we go to our revisions. I have a couple games that I'm looking at that I might change, but I'll let you go first. What do you think? What do you think you would change? Are you all good?
Let me go down the list here real fast. Okay, Giants, I'm good on that. Bills, I'm good on that. Bears, I think I'm going to stick with that. I feel pretty good about my theory there. Broncos, I'll stick with that. Browns, I will stick with that. Rams, I'll stick with that. Steelers, I'll circle back around to that real fast here in a minute. Patriots, I'll stick with that. I'm obviously keeping my lock with the Saints. The Eagles is one I might change. Well, I like my theory and I'll keep it that way. But really the only two that I might change, while you obviously think about yours, are the Atlanta, Tampa Bay. I might flip that. And I also might flip the Pittsburgh. I still like Pittsburgh to win, but I'm just not super confident about the -5.5. So those are the two that I'm eyeballing. But maybe you talk about what you're thinking, and then once you're done, I'll have made my decision about what I'm going to do.
All right. Well, I actually have two that I have my eye on here. I think I'm not too confident in the Tennessee Titans right now. I just, like you said, the Seahawks have a track record of being incredibly potent early in the year. So I'm actually going to go ahead and change that. And then that Thursday night football game, that's an interesting one because I part of me feels like the Giants are going to really keep that close and really fight, but I do feel that way. But at the same time, that offensive line and just Daniel Jones's tendency to have costly turnovers, that really scares me. And in the football team, they have a formula. I mean, say what you want about that offense. They may not have that much explosiveness, but they do have a formula. Just play great defense and score 20 points, and you'll see them win most games. So I'm actually going to change that. I kind of talked myself into switching that pick. I might regret that later, but I think they actually will cover that 3.5 point spread.
Okay. There was one more game I think I might change, and that is the Arizona.
All right.
I think I'm gonna actually stick with it. I don't want to end up second guessing myself and having that come back to bite me.
Right.
I think the one I will change though is the. I hate doing it because it is my team, but I think I'm going to change Las Vegas Raiders plus 5.5 against Pittsburgh.
All right.
Just because the Raiders do play the Steelers fairly tough. They are one of the teams that seems to give the Steelers trouble, and in years past, it has been the elite tight ends like Darren Waller that have given this defense trouble. And I do think Derek Carr is a top 12 quarterback in this league. He's accurate. He's not going to make that huge mistake. And I do like a lot of the Raiders' weapons. I think you could maybe see a Henry Ruggs catch a Steelers quarterback sleeping somewhere. Maybe Josh Jacobs plays, and that gives them a legit chance to maybe actually steal this game. Steelers are coming off an emotional victory against what we think is a Super Bowl contender in Buffalo. I still like my Steelers to win, but I'm feeling more confident that the Raiders can keep this close and cover the 5.5 point spread. That's really all I'm saying.
Yeah, and obviously I agree with you there because I'm picking the Raiders also. But yeah, that's got to be a tough choice because the Steelers could easily just find those receivers on a couple of deep passes, then all of a sudden they blow that game open. Because if that offense has a good week, that 5.5 point spread all of a sudden becomes kind of tiny. So we shall see on that. But yeah, that's gonna do it, guys. If you're listening up to this point or watching up to this point, I just want to thank you for supporting us, supporting the channel. Leave a like, and happy football season, guys. It's been a fun week one so far, and I'm really excited for the series for the rest of the year. I think this is going to be a fun thing that we're going to do year after year moving forward. So, yeah.
One thing, possibly keep an eye out on an episode coming out in a couple days, maybe. That has to do with maybe some college football and some baseball, maybe some other things too. We'll see. But other than that, enjoy week number 2 of the NFL season, which starts tomorrow with that Giants football team game. Enjoy week number 3 of college football as well. And we'll see you at the latest next Wednesday to recap week 2 and to pick week number 3.
All right. Yeah. Peace out, guys.
Peace.